Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for coming back on time. It's my great pleasure this morning to introduce Lawson Bracewell. And the irony is that this man needs no introduction. I mean, Lawson is Lawson. And the thing is, this is our 25th conference, and we're really in a celebratory mode about that. But Lawson has attended 23 of the 25 conferences. So I figure he must know just about everyone. I know Lawson best for the past 10 years as a co-worker on the board of the USR SRI. And in that role, he is a very valued colleague. For me, I think his greatest contribution is his clarity of thought and his direct speech. He has great insights. He is almost always positive, encouraging, and full of great ideas. Another quality that I appreciate in Lawson is his steadfastness. Lawson stands. Lawson stands with Master Moria. Lawson stands with the ageless wisdom. Lawson stands for the dissemination of esoteric teaching. Lawson stands for and with the one fundamental school. And in this, the beautiful thing is, he never wavers. His standing has resulted in the manifestation of Christ College of Trans-Himalayan Wisdom in New Zealand. The college is built on Master DK's model and offers a marvelous opportunity for students to study the ageless wisdom in the most beautiful residential setting. I hope that you will all have time this week to check out Lawson's display in the bookstore, and especially the album of pictures, because right in the beginning of the album, you will see several pictures of the temple. The Christ College Temple is a wonderful example of the fourth ray qualities of harmony and beauty. Please join me in welcoming Lawson.
There's a beautiful woman in New Zealand who said, "Lawson, this year, begin your talk by sitting down. Then stand up and say to people, I've come from the ring of fire. And to that I would add, I stand in the ring of fire. And to that I would say, I am the ring of fire." Then she said, "Do what you always do. Look as deeply into the audience as you can and make contact with every eye that you can see. And then do whatever you do." So, I come here naked in the moment. I have no idea what I'm going to say or what I'm going to share with you. I trust. There are going to be some images playing on the screen. So I'll just tell you what the images are because they're not labeled. The name of the talk is The Blue Pearl, and it is a path to intuition. There are 10 images. There's an image of simply a dot. There's an image of a blue pearl in a brooch. This blue pearl is found in the waters of the Akaroa Harbor, which is just below the temple. There's an image of great picture, several pictures taken off of a website named Sold Out, which I really recommend that you visit. One of those shows the ecstatic moment of release from the form throughout the Crown Center. There's an image of the logo for Christ College of Trans-Himalayan Wisdom, which is patterned on the symbol of Sirius. There are 3 images by a wonderful artist named Francis Donald, who is here. One of them is an image for Aquarius, one is an image for Aries, and then it ends with an image of the Master DK in a blue disc. All right, so it begins every year for me, knowing that the jig is up. It is time for me to contact whatever it is that I'm going to talk about at this year's conference. And so I long ago learned that the easiest, although it required deliberate resolve on my part, was to enter into meditation and ask what it was that I was going to talk about. So I did that this year, and the word the blue pearl came in. Now, it was immediately arresting, but of course, then the journey begins. You know, what in the world is the blue pearl? And so, you know, I went to the website, I went to the Google and brought down references to the blue pearl. Then I went into all of my own memories of reading the Tibetan's work concerning the blue disc. Then I went into just my own personal experiences of opening to every image around me of the blue pearl, anything that touched off the blue pearl. Then I went inside myself and I went, where is the blue pearl inside of me? So that was the process that I've been engaged in as I've done this. And so I would say that in my first musing about pearls, always fascinated me. I'm a Cancer, and this is one of the objects associated with Cancer. And the pearl is so luminous and evocative and mystical and appealing. But for me as a child, what always intrigued me is that it starts out with an irritation. You know, it's like, it doesn't start off with some, wonderful, pleasurable sensation. It starts off with an irritation, and that irritation is a grain of sand within whatever the mollusk is that is producing it. And then accreting around it is this wonderful substance. And I began to think, well, in addition to it being just a grain of sand, perhaps it's a quartz crystal that is at the beginning of it. And then I began to think, so what is this then a metaphor for in our experience? Well, the grain of sand can easily be seen as our essential self, that spirit spark, the monad, that part of us that is eternal, that has always been and will always be, at least for the duration of this universe. Then accreting around it through the irritation of our essential self upon all the planes of matter, all the subtle substance adheres to it, creating beauty, waves of beauty surrounding what is still and silent will. Then I wandered into the shop in Akaroa, which sells blue pearls in various jewelry. And it's a little village, 400 people. You would think I would have been in there before, but of course I hadn't been. And I walked in, and the woman and I looked at each other, and we each said, "I know you." And the other one in the shop laughed, and she said, "Oh, probably some other incarnation, right?" And we laughed and said, "Well, probably." But it's something more than that. It's just now. Just now. We know each other just now. So I was then led into the temple. And the temple is built according to sacred geometry, and there are 8 sides to it, and it has a 6-sided roof, and then at the top of it there's what's called an oculus, and it's a 6-sided glass form, and at the top of it is a double-terminated quartz crystal. And so I sit in there at least 3 times a day and meditate, and I always imagine that there's a fine stream of fire that comes through that quartz crystal and anchors whatever is happening within the temple, whatever is happening inside me while I'm in the temple. And I looked up at it, and there it was. It was blue, and there was seemingly a dark dot right at the center of this great eye that was looking at me. Then I thought about the many references to the blue disc that the Tibetan uses in his teachings. And I was comparing 2 different things. I was comparing what the Tibetan was saying about the blue disc, and then I was looking at what a great teacher, Muktananda, said about the blue pearl. Muktananda said that the blue pearl is the subtlest covering of the soul. He said that when we enter or exit at the point of death into the world of reality, we exit through the top of the head, through the blue pearl, and it allows us to enter into the world of universality. Now, DK says the same things, but in DK words. Instead of referring to it as a blue pearl, he refers to it as a blue disc, but in describing what it does as a portal to subtler and subtler worlds, or subtler and subtler selves, or identification, the teaching, the images, and the process is the same. There was, I suppose, a month or so ago, Michael drew many of our attentions to a part of the teachings at the beginning of, I think, Glamour, A World Problem, but in the moment I wouldn't want to be quoted on that. And he's talking about, the Tibetan is talking about intuition and what it is that is evoked by intuition. And that resonated because there is, in this sense of the blue disc, this blue pearl, a sense that through some magical process, which I call intuition, which the Tibetan calls intuition, we know that which we do not know at a lower level. And through a series of doorways, we're allowed into a subtler or more inclusive or deeper or higher understanding. And he says that there are 3 different qualities of perception that are revealed through this intuitive process, or this following of the blue pearl or the blue disc. And one of them is illumination. Now, just before saying this, I want to share with you something which I experienced some time ago, which was humbling. The Tibetan is drawing us throughout these descriptions of these 3 and the whole subject of intuition to a much higher sense of what they are, introducing us to what is true and real. But I want to just say right at the beginning that my experience was, and his intention is, that we never separate ourselves from the most humble demonstration of these qualities. So my experience was that I was at a meditation retreat, and I was talking about love. And we were sharing our experiences of love. And there was this beautiful woman at the retreat. She was a pediatrician, and she was the mother of several small children. And so from her experience of her own children and other children, and her enjoyment of them, she was talking about love. And in my arrogance, I said, "That is not love." Now, she was a very courageous woman, so she didn't let go of me. She shook me like a dog shakes a rug. Until I had to come off of my high place and say, "Yes, you're right. That's love." So, illumination. This is really, all 3 of these are positioning oneself. Positioning oneself at a certain elevation or interior space within ourself. And from that elevation or from that interior space, we look out upon, we look down upon all that expresses in all of the worlds that are slightly grosser, slightly denser than where we've positioned ourselves. So illumination, ideally, we position ourselves within the mind of our solar logos. Now, if we could do that, then all that we would see is light. We'd be able to telescopically come right on in to the smallest particle and see it as shimmering patterns of light. We'd be able to pull back to that place where we stand and see all the aggregates of light playing in geometric patterns or frequencies or waves of light. We would see it as light shimmering. Now, to see that means no attachment to what it is that you're seeing, because that freezes it. But to see it that way reveals it, opens it out, extends it past any definition of an idea as it has shaped itself in one of the lower levels of identification. Then he talks about love, which is where I had my intense experience. And he says again, there are many different levels of love. And one that we strive towards is that level of love where we look out upon the world, we look out upon each other, we open to each other, and we see need, and we spontaneously respond to that need. But he goes on to describe subtler, higher, deeper levels of love. And it's a tremendous challenge to enter into this, just as it is a challenge to enter into the mind of our solar logos up on the cosmic mental plane. And that is to look out on each other and see fire, to see spirit. No qualities, no needs, to simply see the presence of the one that is within that person. It seems a very different love than the love that we might experience at any other of the levels. And yet it is the animating, vivifying, drenching love that is at the very heart, the very center of all those other levels of love that we experience. Then he talks about understanding. And understanding is, for me, an association with what the Buddha, who was this great Lord of wisdom, and so when he's talking about understanding, it's quite different than the common parlance of understanding. And, this kind of understanding says, not this, not this, not this, not this. But it does not negate the appreciation of every form that is not this. Because not this is found within every one of those forms. But to position oneself at a place where there are no forms, and all of that is simply occurring simultaneously, ever, but from a still place of not. That is what the Tibetan refers to as understanding. But again, I'd like to return to that idea of intuition being found at every one of the levels. It's like a string of pearls. The intuition is found at the very lowest or the densest level, and at the very subtlest level. Where would intuition originate? Oh. In our terminology, in our love of maps, we'd have to find the very first plane of the very first map to say that intuition is present here in its absolutely formless self. But then at every plane, at every 7-divisioned plane, it comes down. So when I hear someone saying, it's in my guts, my intuition tells me, I go, bravo, bravo. because intuition is there. When I hear someone, working out, their little mind is going like a bunch of little wheels, and they have that illuminating little eureka like I had with algebra, I go, yeah, that's the intuition. When someone enters into meditation and there is a contact with the soul, and they say, I see the whole, I see my soul brothers and sisters, yes, that's the intuition. When someone has those momentary points where there is a glimpse of what the plan of our hierarchy is, yes, that is intuition. It's all intuition. It's just at different levels of density, and all of it is useful to us. All of it is to be honored. There needs to be no resistance or saying, that's less than, that's not as important as. All right, one of the interesting things about doing this is that there are these little moments where it stops. Right, so then I went into the Tibetans' particular instructions in terms of the blue sphere. And these are most present in his meditations preparing us for full moon contact. And I must say that there have been periods of my life in which I was sort of, I don't know, I wouldn't say lukewarm, but I just didn't put very much attention on these meditations. I was much more drawn to the really big ones, like the Antakarana meditations, because I found it very difficult to do the Antakarana meditation. And so, my personality, I suppose, got really enthusiastic about struggling to be able to approach what the Tibetan was talking about. And, obviously that's going to be a lifetime process. Now, of course, the blue sphere is found in the Antakarana meditation, at least as nearly as I see it, in that there is a point at which you create or at least I do. I know we all have to find, that's what he says, you all have to find your way. He gives us wonderful hints about the Antakarana meditation, and then he says, now it's all up to you. So, anyway, my one, there is a cone which reaches upwards from the mental permanent, or the permanent atom on the fourth subplane of the mental plane. And cone, I color it primarily with indigo blue, which is the color of the blue disk. It opens out as cones do up onto the Buddhic plane, and that circle, that disk, is an indigo blue disk. So there is the disk in this. But the meditations that he gives as preparations for the full moon are a movement in group formation towards a blue disk. And within the center of that blue disk, he sits. And the group's mind merges with his mind. Now, the symbolism of this is that we approach the Buddhic plane, the plane of intuition, where he and the hierarchy reside, where he and all members of the hierarchy turn towards humanity and attempt to link us to this great stream of intuition so that we can come en rapport with great ideas at whatever level we're able to tune in and become receptive. The one that I particularly like in terms of the images that he gives us is we're approaching ivory doors, and we send a ball of rose-colored light streaming along the path, and it sails through the door. For me, that is preparing the way of devotion. Then we sail a ball of green, emerald green light along the path through the door. This opens up our abstract mind so that it can be receptive. We essentially give our thoughts. Then we send along the path a ball of golden yellow light. This light is associated with the fourth ray, or the Buddhic plane. So there is this opening of the heart as we send our light along this path. Then we send a ball of deep indigo blue along the path. The second ray of love wisdom. And of course, that's what the blue dot is associated with, this blue pearl, or this blue disc. This is that all-pervading, but always focusing stream of love upon which we find all of these expansions of intuitive awareness. And there in the center, this ball does not go through the door, but blocks the door. And then in the center of that is the Tibetan. He becomes, for us, the blue disc. Through him and his mind, through him and his heart, we have an opportunity to enter into this lighted, intuitive, loving, understanding space. Tibetan says that there are these three forms of intuition that open. But then he says, and then there's a fourth. So this is, of course, the theme of the conference, and Harold did a wonderful presentation on talking about the all-creative fourth. And so the fourth is universality. Universality includes understanding, illumination, and love. It synthesizes them into one. Now, in other words, this is a form of identification that we're linked into. It's this wonderful image of the sun, a blue dot, a great pearl. I wonder, as Harold would describe, a wonderful symphony of ever-changing harmonies. I always, as an astrologer, find it amazing that especially Leos can sort of flinch when you say you're meant to be completely self-conscious. Because there's been such bad press, you're not supposed to go, oh, look at me, you're supposed to be selfless. But of course, the symbol of the sun is just revealing the self. We all must. On the path, of the blue pearl, we must be as naked as we possibly can be, only through revealing and removing all those subtle, wonderful, but subtle bits of clothing that surround us. Can we reveal the truth, which has ever been present, ever is present, ever will be present within us? Thank you.